Simulation rules and conditions. 1. C&K Moneyline administers the entire simulation of its ShareTracken software package, which means that at the end of your simulation period, ShareTracken will conduct a simulation report at the end of your 12-month simulation period. 2. The client simulation training extends over a period of 12 months and the client will be provided with a notional capital of 100,000 Rand, with which to trade, at the start of the said period. Which means you will only have the given amount to trade with and your simulation period will only be 12 months. After the 12 months we will conduct the report and send it off to the appropriate parties. 3. All transactions conducted for simulation purposes on the ShareTracken software program have to be recorded and accounted for under the client's own unique password and log in to the ShareTracken web server and simulation portfolio. The record of transactions generated are accepted by the client as being the full and correct reflection of what has transpired on his/her simulated portfolio. No email or fax transactions will, at any stage, be legible for entry. Which means you are only allowed to buy and sell on your own portfolio and under no other client's details. We will not do any transactions on your behalf as stated. You are in full control of your own transactions. 4. The client must register for the simulation on or before the simulation start date as specified on his/her purchase order. As soon as you or the technician does the registration, your simulation period of 12 months starts and the report will be conducted from the registered date. 5. The client must select equity shares which are included on the C&K Moneyline winning shares list and or the top 40 shares cited on the software and or its website, at any given time. This means that we will only allow shares on the top 40 and the winning shares list to be bought and sold unless it was a recommendation from one of our ShareTracken gurus. 6. The client understands and acknowledges that the shares on the winning shares list and or the top 40 index may change without prior notice. Due to the ever-changing markets, the winning shares list may change as time goes by, so shares may be removed and or added on any day or time. 7. The investment calculator found on the website and or the break-even percentage shown on the purchase order when completing the transaction must be considered before finalizing any transaction on the client's simulated portfolio. A break-even percentage of at least 4% must be maintained throughout. This means all transactions must have a break-even point of below 4% and not above. You will be provided with an investment calculator on the software which must be used before every transaction. 8. The client must ensure that he/she holds a minimum of 1 and maximum of 10 different shares in his/her simulated portfolio throughout the simulation period and ensure that those shares have been selected in accordance with point 5. You are only allowed 10 different companies during the simulation period. Any more than this will not be allowed or looked at during the simulation report. 9. The client must ensure that he/she holds a maximum of 10 different shares in his/her simulated portfolio throughout the simulation period and ensure that those shares have been selected in accordance with point 5. The client must ensure that any share which he/she procures on the simulation is subject to a strict stop-loss strategy so that no loss greater than 10% of the purchase price, including the dealing costs, is ever incurred by the client on any share in their simulated portfolio. This means you are, as specified in point 8, not allowed to buy more than 10 different companies during the 12 months, and also that you are only limited to the top 40 and the winning shares list, and also that you have to keep in mind that your shares are not allowed to fall lower than 10%, which excludes the dealing costs, brokerage fees. 10. The client undertakes to immediately sell any share in his simulated portfolio which has performed at below 40% per annum for longer than any consecutive period of 22 trading days. In other words, if a share is to remain in the client's portfolio, it must rise by at least 3.33% 40% divided by 12 each month. If you buy a share that is not listed on the top 40 or winning shares list, that share must have an average growth of 40% per year or 3.33% per month, so you are not allowed to buy any share that does not have a constant growth pattern. 11. The client must record at least 2 valid reasons in the comment box provided in the simulation, either fundamental or technical, for each purchase and 1 reason for each sale to justify the transaction. If you do a purchase on the software, you will have the opportunity to give good reason for buying a share, either technical or fundamental. meaning any form of technical analysis of fundamental research that you have done you will have to note in the comment block, but you have to give 2 good reasons for the buy and 1 good reason for the sell transaction. 12. The guaranteed return of 40% given above excludes the transaction dealing costs, as determined by C&K Moneyline and which are in agreement with current rates charged in general, by brokerage firms in South Africa. This means that we don't include the brokerage costs of your transactions on any share, so when a share grows by 14% and your break-even point was 4%, we only consider the 10% of the total growth. 13. The client must read and study the lecture material available on the ShareTracken website and complete the multiple-choice tests for each lecture module. To qualify for the guarantee, the client must record an average score of at least 50% over all the multiple-choice tests for all the available lecture modules. We have compiled technical, fundamental and economic lectures that must be done during the 12-month period. You will have to complete these as our goal is to empower you on the JSE with the needed knowledge. 14. The client is required to log in at least 80% of the simulation period. This means you will have to log in at least once a day. This does not mean that you have to spend 8 hours a day on the software. Even if it's just to look at your shares for the day, you still have to log in once a day. 15. The aforementioned rules and conditions are under constant scrutiny and are subject to change. C&K Moneyline reserves the right to change any rule and/or condition contained herein by posting any such change on its website. Such changes will then come into effect and be binding on the client 5 working days after publishing.